Hey, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Frank About Health. Today, we're on our YouTube channel as well as talkradio.nyc, and we have a very interesting guest for you today. His name is Ben Lytle, and he has a book out in the marketplace right now called The Potentialist. I want to explain to you something very interesting about this book before we go into a further discussion. It looks at what the COVID-19 pandemic has turned our society into a way of being able to cope with the unexpected using technology, innovation, and putting a lot of people who were, depending on their age group, not sure what to do, looked for the right or easiest path to solve their issues, and at the same time, were changing and evolving their mindset into the new reality that is now post-pandemic. That being said, the book is titled The Potentialist: Your Future in the New Reality of the Next 30 Years. Now, Ben Lytle is basically using this as one of a 3-book series. And I got to tell you, I couldn't put this book down because it pretty much identifies with what I've been doing this past year on Frank About Health in being able to accommodate all the last minute changes that have occurred due to COVID, due to personal care that I had to give to my father, my cousin, and among other guests that I've had on the show. I did also want to give my weekly disclaimer, which is that the comments and discussion points that Ben and I will be having during the next hour are not the views of talkradio.nyc or of the show Frank About Health, but rather they are content that will be discovered further and in detail in this book, which again is a must read. That being said, I want to first welcome you, Ben, to Frank About Health, and then discuss a little bit about your background. But I thought I'd first let you give your own comments as well.
Well, thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here and have the opportunity to talk to people who care about health and think about it and think about how we can do it. We can do it better. I've been around healthcare for a long time, and one of the things that I think I find is a misunderstanding, even among policymakers in Washington, is they often talk about fixing healthcare, and there is no fixing. I think it's the wrong way to look at it. The best way to think about healthcare and health for the average person is think about that if it were the fountain of youth, how would you allocate the fountain of youth? Fountain of youth can only produce so much water. It's got it can only take you so far if and so when we think about health and healthcare, we have to think about it as an evolving thing. We're every day inventing new things to do. We're learning more about what the causality of disease is. Most people think, well, don't we always know what the cause of disease is? In fact, is no. It's about 15% of the time we really know the ultimate cause of a disease. With the science we now have in gene technology and constant discovery, we're getting closer, but it's a very complicated issue. It evolves, and we have to evolve with it. Our thinking has to evolve with it. But there's not going to be some magic day when someone says, if we do this, everybody's going to have all the health care they need, and everybody's going to have good health, and we know everything we do is going to be efficacious. We don't know that.
Right. Would you say that was the way a lot of us thought prior to the pandemic, and that it just became disruptive as a result of watching our whole society change, shut down, become in a bubble?
I think what I don't really think, I haven't found attitudes towards healthcare changed a lot in really about 40 or 50 years, nor have I found in terms of how you work with the healthcare system and what you have to do. Certainly the pandemic was a big wake-up call, and it accelerated a lot of things about treatment in healthcare that we hadn't thought about before. But some of these things have been in place for a very long time, and the pandemic just brought everything more to everyone's attention. I mean, there's always, the pandemic was a horrible thing. Wish it would never happen. So many people died and suffered, but these things always bring other things that turn out to be good. It happened in the Great Plague, the Black Plague. It's happened every time. So we just have to be thankful for the things that did come. And certainly we've learned a lot about how we alternate ways to get care. And it's triggered literally hundreds of thousands of innovators and innovative ideas, and that's a good thing.
So would you classify that COVID-19 was a catalytic event or a disruptive event that brought out the entrepreneurial innovation?
Yeah, it was both. It disrupted the healthcare system as we know it. It was catalytic in that it triggered an enormous amount of innovation. It's always, necessity is the mother of invention. And I spent years and was quite a bit of time right before the pandemic in Washington trying to convince policymakers and also at the state level to convince policymakers that e-visits and telemedicine could be a very good thing, and that we had a hodgepodge of state laws that made it very difficult for innovators in this field to navigate that. And I don't own any stock in any e-visit companies or anything like that. I was merely trying to say that we have a huge problem coming, huge. And it's that we have a shortage of doctors. Before another thing, before the two were not related. The COVID and the shortage of doctors and so forth was not, and nurses didn't happen because of the pandemic. That's something we've known about for 25 years, is that birth rates were falling. Yep. People were aging out. Doctors were aging out. We were not replacing doctors as fast as they were aging out. And a lot of us were waving flags going, problem, this is going to be a big problem, and particularly primary care docs. And we couldn't get anyone to pay attention to it. Now it's front and center. We all see it. We all see we can't get flights because there's no pilots. We see we can't get service at restaurants because there's not enough waiters. And so now the reality of the fact that we have a declining population in the West is very real, and it's really going to hit us on healthcare. So before the pandemic, what I was trying to do was to bring that attention to policymakers to say, look, we're going to have a way to make doctors see more patients and be more effective, and one of those ways is e-visits and telemedicine. And the only barrier, there's no technological barrier. The barrier is outdated regulation. And so let's find a way to get through that. I had some luck, within Medicare, or not luck, but I had some effect, I think, and influence within Medicare and Medicaid. But as a whole, it took the pandemic to change it. It's way bigger than me.
Well, that comes to basically your whole background. I mean, essentially, you became the potentialist or the futurist through your experience in working in state and federal healthcare commissions, correct?
No, it really started long before that. I was when I was 20 years old, I took a college course taught by a charismatic young professor, and I was a kid young man off the ranch. Grew up on a ranch, grew up in a relatively small town, and he said to our class, you do not have to be what anyone else says you should be in terms of your life, your career, not your parents, not what anyone tells you need to be successful. You need to, the way for you to find true success is to discover your own potential and live it. And that was the moment I became a potentialist. It was an aha moment for me. I began to study human potential, how you try to determine what your potential is and live to it. And then there was the second seminal event about 5 years later. By then I was, an IT professional and in management role and so forth, because everybody was young back then in those roles. So, and I discovered, I'd always liked science fiction, but I discovered futurists, and futurists are more like where science fiction uses stories and tales to help you imagine the future. Futurists do it more with facts and figures and analytics. But I realized that they were doing the same thing I was, where I was exploring the potential of individuals and groups of individuals and companies. They were doing it by studying the potential of the human race. And I said, well, that's one and the same then. So I became both a futurist and a potentialist. And it ended up shaping my entire life, because I've been a successful businessman, entrepreneur, and leader. And it's because I look at life through the lens of potential. I lead people by looking at what's this, how can I help this person discover their potential and then live it out? Because if they do that, they're going to love working with me, and they're going to love their job, and they're going to make their maximum contribution. So it really has shaped my entire life. And awesome. So healthcare is just a part of it, but it's really it's a life philosophy for me.
Oh yeah, I mean, I know that I started this show, Frank About Health, because of my life experience with epilepsy. So I became an advocate for it, right. And I just noticed that I have evolved, especially through COVID. So I think I followed the same kind of evolution through circumstance, and that's why I'm very inspired to understand.
Yeah, you found what you wanted to do, right? I mean, you found your place where, and when you do that, you really tend to be at your best, and you achieve more than you ever think you could, and because you got the wind at your back.
Correct. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to take our first break, but you basically heard the introduction of our guest today. And just to summarize before we take our break, it says here that Ben Lytle is a self-made serial entrepreneur and CEO known for being ahead of the curve. Launched 5 successful companies, the best known being Anthem, which today is 29th on the Fortune 500 list with a market value of over $100 billion. As he mentioned, he's a healthcare policy expert who served on state and presidential healthcare commissions. His devotion is to individual and collective human potential, and he believes that people and organizations today underestimate the extent and speed which the world will change, especially after COVID-19 started in 2020. That being said, when we return from our break, we're now going to go through the book, The Potentialist, that will show a reflection of his life experience and what he's now foreseeing for all of us as we move forward the next 30 years. So please stay tuned for this episode of Frank About Health right here on talkradio.nyc and on our YouTube channel. We'll be back in a few.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant. And on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you on edge? Hey, we live in challenging, edgy times, so let's lean in. I'm Sandra Bargman, the host of The Edge of Every Day, which airs each Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc. Tune in live with me and my friends and colleagues as we share stories and perspectives about pushing boundaries and exploring our rough edges. That's The Edge of Every Day on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Welcome back. We're here with my special guest today, Ben Lytle, and we're talking about his book, The Potentialist, Your Future in the New Reality of the Next 30 Years. That all being said, again, when I was reading it, I was looking at your examples of various situations. People like, I think her name was Alyssa or Allison.
Yeah, Alyssa. Yeah.
Yes, that she learned that during COVID-19, in order to continue functioning, she had to really grasp Zoom technology, which we all had to do in one way, shape, or form. I gather she was also seeing her doctors through telehealth. She was probably doing her bill paying, her shopping, her food ordering, her communications with others. I mean, everything became a virtual existence. I can understand that depending on the demographic of the user, people under the Gen Z generation, for example, I think they're the under 20 group, or even people, let's just say the older generation, the speed of adaptation must have fluctuated depending on the segment that was going through that change. And I guess what I wanted to first focus was the older generation, because they are the ones that are going to have a challenge in looking at the next 30 years. So what would you say as a futurist or a potentialist would be the best way to educate them and understanding that this is the new reality, that using technology is part of their life on various levels, but in this particular case, healthcare?
Well, it's very age and demographic dependent. If you're in rural areas, it's not always easy to get good Wi-Fi and cellular service. You may not be as exposed to technology as you are in more urban areas. But having said that, I'm always surprised, you find people of all ages who are really quite good at technology. One of the principles I think that is in my book and is that this future is coming. We don't have a choice about it. And a lot of times people think I'm advocating one thing or that. I'm not. I'm just saying, hey, if I'm reading the tea leaves right, and I think I am, then this is what it's going to be. So the only choice we have is either adapt, prepare and adapt, because you can do a lot of preparation to help you, or you pretty well get slammed. And we know that exists. That will happen. It's not a maybe, because this is the fourth industrial revolution, according to the World Economic Forum. And I actually think it's even more than that. I think it is an absolutely transitional period in human history, where we're moving from the industrial age into a completely different time that's an expansion of human potential. And that human potential expansion is going to come about because of medicine. It's going to come about because of the changes in technology and work. And so the choice is really, am I going to adapt, or am I going to roll the dice and see what happens? It's our nature to want to do that. It's human nature, it goes back, and it's not new. It goes back to Aesop's fables, from several thousand years ago, where, the fable of the ant and the grasshopper, where The ants were, storing food for the winter, and the grasshopper was laughing at him and saying, "Ha! Why are you doing that? Why don't you enjoy life, man? And of course, then later he's back begging because he's going to starve to death. And they say, well, you should have thought of that. And so it's our nature to want to say, well, I'll deal with it when it gets here. The reason that won't work this time is because there's going to be so much change in so many things, and it's going to happen so fast, you can't react. And so you can't even comprehend fast enough to react. So you need to plan now and do the things that can give you the stability and the confidence to navigate through these times. And that's what the book is. The first 88 pages, I tried to condense what I think will happen in the next 30 years. And that's, everybody thinks, well, I got 30 years. No, you don't. It's happening right now. So it's right this minute. It's happening. And then, and then the other part of, then the next 140 something pages, 7 chapters, says, here's 7 things that if you'll do, and you don't have to get them all, become a master of them at once, but if you master these 7 things, you will be far better prepared than most people to make it through these times and succeed and prosper. Right. And the only reason I did this was because I know, we know from the previous industrial revolutions, the people who adapted and quickly, and prepared, they did well. And the people who didn't had a lot of suffering. And I just don't want to see that happen. We should be smarter this time. So at least I'm going to do my best. Yeah.
You could say this book becomes more of a guidebook for everyone when they need to evolve over whatever they have, 10, 20, 30 years, and prepare as much as they can, especially in whatever their main focus is, whether it's their career, their families, their education. They at least it also helps regulate their mental health and calms down the anxiety levels they must be experiencing coming out of a pandemic. You think you're going to go back to where you were from, but no, you're not. You're going to have to learn the new normal, as they say.
Right. And these were all things, all 7 of these items I selected are things that were always good to do. But in the future, with change happening faster, and with the other change forces that are happening, declining population and increasing technology, now it's going to be critical that living longer, it's going to be critical that you do that. So now it's not optional. And so that's how I selected the 7. I used a focus group of all different age groups to help me select the 7 and make sure I was hitting the ones that everybody thought was critical. I didn't want it to be 20 things. People can't do that. And I shot for 5 and got 7. So but they're all good. They're really, and there's things everybody can master. These are not something you have to spend a lot of money. It's not that you have to turn your life upside down if you start now. If you wait too late, now you will have to turn your life upside down. So that's why it's really important to digest these, start making progress on every one, and set yourself a goal to where you would say, yeah, I've mastered that, each one of these.
Of the 7, which is the one that would fit regardless of age, that everyone must get a grasp on, especially as we are going out of the pandemic, from all the protections to now this new way of adapting? What would you say that one of those 7 is?
I think they all are, but I would say that the ones that are the most important are health, wealth, and success, because you're going to live longer, and to live longer, you need your health, or else life's not necessarily going to be that pleasant. If you don't have the wealth and you're scraping to pay for everything, you're struggling to survive, again, because you've lived longer now, you got more years to live, and you haven't saved, you haven't built enough, then it's going to be much more difficult. And the last one is success. The true measure of success, I believe, from my study of people who are exceptional And that doesn't mean they're all wealthy. They were just exceptional people. Is not money, fame, power, or appearance, any of or social status, because those are all transitory. And at the end of the day, when you lay your head down on the pillow, that's when you really assess success. And people who go to sleep and go, yeah, man, I did it, are the people who gave it their all. They discovered their potential, they lived it, and they didn't miss a beat. And that's
so that level of success is the individual.
Yeah, right.
Not the collective success. The individual success, knowing your talent, knowing yourself, knowing your instincts, using your gut.
Right.
Being able to recall events of the past and how you learned from them and use those new skills you learned to adapt to the new issues you face.
Right. And people have said to me, well, how do you measure that? You know, and only you know. And I use a simple little definition. This is what guides me in everything I do and what I've taught other people to use. This little simple thing. I do my best to be my best and leave the world and the people I meet along the way a little better than I found. You don't have to do great magic things. Just leave everybody and everything you do a little better than I found. That's what they teach you right out of at least I was taught. The basics of management is leave it better than you found it. That's it. Leave it better than you found it. Well, that's really what life is. If you set yourself, I'm going to do my best, and you'll know what your best is. We all know it athletically. We know when, we have a sense of knowing, look, I can't stuff a basketball, I can't do that. I'm not tall enough, or I'm not athletic. Okay. But my best is I can shoot a pretty good layup. That's my best. I can shoot layups reliably, or I can get rebound. So it's the same thing as in athletics in our life. We know when we've given our best or when we've got improvement to make. And then in the book, I suggest a very simple system for how you can measure your progress and measure your improvement.
Very nice. It's almost like what they say, it's in the giving that you receive, but using that as a cornerstone, you just know that with everyone that you meet, give your best. And whatever evolves or resolves from that, you'll know better in the future whether that individual is someone you will continue to work with or know or relate to, or whether they were one of those people along the journey.
That's right. And for really, life can't ask more than our best from us. Other people can't ask more than our best. That's what we say to our kids. We say, do your best. If you do your best, I'm proud of you. That's all we ask. And so it becomes it's almost like a universal ethos, that you can really build your life around that, and it's usable, it's practical. So anyway, that's a big part of what drives me, and is trying to share that. And I do believe, though, the other part of the book is that this period, what's going to happen with the technology and medicine is that our potential is going to automatically expand. So,
all right, now we're about to take a break, but I want you to get into that again, especially when it comes to our youth and our Gen Z people, because they're all going to be educated on this new evolution, or as we said, revolution that's happening. So please stay tuned as we're talking with the Potentialist right here on Frank About Health. We'll be back in a few.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are you passionate about the conversation around racism? Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. TLC, host of the Dismantle Racism Show, which airs every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc. Join me and my amazing guests as we discuss ways to uncover, dismantle, and eradicate racism. That's Thursdays at 11 o'clock a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a small business trying to navigate the COVID-19 related employment laws? Hello, I'm Eric Sauvert, employment law, business law attorney, and host of the new radio show, Employment Law Today. On my show, we'll have guests to discuss the common employment law challenges business owners are facing during these trying times. Tune in on Tuesday evenings from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back. We're here with Ben Little talking about, Lytle, forgive me. We're here talking about innovation and the changes that have occurred post-pandemic. And we had a brief discussion about how older generations are learning to capitalize on the changes they've had to learn to adapt to, or find themselves in a situation which we're hoping that this book, The Potentialist, will guide people from avoiding. But that being said, we have the Gen Z population that is learning this from the ground up. And so I wanted to talk about this not from a perspective of innovation resistance, but innovation education, or at least what would you say about the Gen Z population? When would people who have gone through the pandemic best teach their children or teach the younger generation about how technology and about all these new methodologies with healthcare would be better to adapt to right when they're in high school or younger than that?
Yeah, let me come at it from this way first.
Okay.
You would think, I would say that the number one biggest barrier to people of all ages adapting to change, very rapid change. Some of it's technological, some of it's medicals. There's all kinds of technology. If you go out and you look at any industry, and which I do, and you look for what are the leading changes, what's the cutting edge in each industry, you'd be blown away. Every industry is advancing at a pace like we've never seen. But if you go back again to the prior industrial revolutions, or just the experiences we had in COVID, the biggest barrier to adapting and doing well is fear of change, and fear of the unknown, and pessimism, and they have different effects. Fear causes us to freeze up. It causes us just like this. And it also causes us to make bad decisions. We become, I don't know of anybody who's ever made a really good decision when they're fearful. You have to be calm, thoughtful, resolute. And pessimism has the effect of blinding you to opportunity, because even when things around you seem turbulent, there's there's a lot of opportunity. When things are extraordinarily stable, it's harder. So that's when entrepreneurs go, wow, great day today, So that's what you want to do. And we've got a long way to go, Frank. There was a recent national news poll. 70% of the people, the respondents to the poll, said the future will be worse than today. That's nonsense. That is nonsense. And that says they've been fed. If you just watch, what we see on the news, you watch politicians, and you watch, even products were sold. If you don't get this, you're in real trouble. Fear's become the cheapest, easiest way to sell. And that has bad effects, and to get our attention. Even more concerning, a recent survey, only 10% of the survey respondents in this poll of this survey of 19 to 25-year-olds, only 10% were confident in their future. 10%. That says we got a problem. We have to turn that around. And the other interesting thing is most young people, even today, take their attitudes from young people, from their parents. Their parents and their grandparents are the biggest influencers of how their perspective into the world. Well, if the parents are walking around going, "Oh, it's horrible, it's never been so bad," blah, blah, and the grandparents do the same thing, and particularly, we're older people, we tend to fall into that trap. It's just nonsense. It's not true. We live in the best, safest time in history, period. Is it perfect? No. But go try the 20th century. We killed 60 million people in major wars in the 20th century. 19-year-olds, that was the expectation. You were going to lose 10 to 20% of your 19-year-olds before they were 25 to war. We don't do that anymore. No. We don't take young, little kids to public executions. We don't have public executions anymore. Those kind of things, we forget that. So we need to have the perspective. We live in the best times in history. Now we've got the opportunity to make it not only better, but much better with these powerful technologies that we're inventing.
So in essence, there's a lot of reframing and rethinking that has to go on because the Gen Z audience is essentially resistant to future planning. They're afraid of it. They don't understand it. And they probably have to be re-educated. Well, the individual parent or teacher has to be re-educated first, and then in turn transfer that knowledge base to the Gen Z population that is going to evolve with the new.
It really doesn't, Frank. It doesn't take a lot of study. I mean, I wrote my book to help people make that explanation. There's a whole chapter or half of a chapter in chapter 4 there, where I talk about, will the future be better or worse? And I make the case for why it will be better. And it's a compelling case because my case is 3 million years. 3 million years of human existence. The arc of history is always upward. We go through bad times. We see a lot of division in the country today and so forth. That always portends a better time. That's the birthing of a better time, always. And so it doesn't take a lot. Oh yeah, the book's helpful, but it also, if you just say to your kids and grandkids, you know what, we'll get through this. We've been through this a lot of times. Yes. I was there in the 60s, and there was so much anger over the Vietnam War, and we were killing college kids on campus, and but we'll get through this. And you just need to believe in that and start looking for all the good things that are coming and take advantage of them. That's the way we get there.
What would you say about the environment and the future of the environment itself, like with climate change?
Well, the one thing I will say, of course, it's something we have to pay attention to. We are paying attention to, but people there is a thing in human nature that loves the thought of cataclysm. It really does. I'm convinced that the third person born on Earth went, "It's ending tomorrow." Everyone think, "Oh well, that can't be." In people's in the year 1000, there were mass suicides because it was the year 1000. Is that insane?
That's reminding me of the Y2K fear.
People can't possibly live more than 1,000 years. So do we have a serious environmental issue? Yes, but what everybody forgets when they are drawn to cataclysm, and it is something in our psyche that kind of likes it. And I personally think it's every ego can't imagine the world continuing without it. But I think we always forget that, again, necessity is the mother of invention. And we will solve this. We will solve it. We'll figure it out. Innovation will save our bacon. It does it every time. And there are many, 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 many millions of smart people working on this problem right now. And of course, we are looking at already in the West, we're going to have fewer people and fewer, we're not even replacing ourselves in the West. It takes 2.1 children being born per female to keep a population flat in the entire developed world. No one is at 2.1. Everyone is somewhere short of 2.1. We're 1.7 in the United States. Italy, Spain, North Korea, they're in free fall. China are in free fall because they're not even come close to replacing themselves. Well, fewer people create less pollution. And so we've got that working for us, and people weren't even aware of that, until the last year or so. But people that follow this stuff like me have known about it for more than 25 years. And there's a great book written about 26, 27 years ago called Fewer that laid every bit of this out and how it was going to work out. And that's the way it's working out. So we've got some trends working our way, and we'll get through this. We'll get through this.
It's interesting. I remember reading in the book about how a lot of people, especially during the pandemic, were living in such fear that they only focused on the moment. And the irony is that the moment is what you can focus on, but to be a futurist, to think positively about all the turbulence as being opportunity is what we, I guess, had either never learned or failed to learn, or were very, very unsure how to adapt to. And a lot of people relying on the past, which only reinforces the negativity. So I guess there's a lot of mind shifting or mind development work that everyone has to undertake, whether maybe by reading your book and getting some of the skills that you talk about to help in training the mind. I know that I have found myself in a lot of turbulent issues that I've been able, through my own talking myself down or getting my facts straight and looking at my options, it's allowed me to move forward, not as fast as I would have liked, but I know it's an issue of reframing from a positive outlook versus a negative one, which sounds like that what you mentioned in the book is that people can think positive if they look at the future as a welcoming opportunity. And we have probably generations of people saying, oh, don't think about the future now. It's too early.
And if you don't mind, hold the book up for a second, Frank. I'm going to show you the cover. Notice the cover. You can't see it, unfortunately, on the screen, but the first three talk about data, information, and knowledge, and then wisdom. And now I'll explain the reason I asked you to hold it up.
Okay.
What's happening at this? There's many things that I talk about, in the book about why is this such a special time in history. We're exiting the industrial age, and the industrial age sort of took creative people and made them interchangeable parts, like an assembly line. We were standardized, and that's and now we're about to go the other way.
Right.
Through the internet and all the devices we've got and the instant information and knowledge and data is becoming a commodity. It's immediately available to everyone. We've got our education system has been built around teaching that. Now we're going to be able to focus not on the data and the information and the knowledge, but how to use it well. That's wisdom. And going to your specific point, what is wisdom? Wisdom is the art of living well. And it comes in two specific parts. The first is perspective. So what you do, exactly what you said, when you're down and you're stuck in what's happening right now around you, you can't see the way forward. Because you're trapped down here. And so the first thing you learn to do is you learn to elevate yourself above the current.
Right.
Look back in history and think about where we've come from and what times have we faced similar to this. What can we learn from that? Now look at the present, see its similarities, and then look forward. And then you can see. Right.
We have to take our final break, but that's exactly what we'll talk about in our final section, which is how we can use that wisdom and all look forward. So please stay tuned as we're here with The Potentialist. right here on Frank About Health.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
In a post-COVID world, you may have many unanswered questions regarding your health. Are you looking to live a healthier lifestyle? Do you have a desire to learn more about mental health and enhance your quality of life? Or do you just want to participate in self-understanding and awareness? I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each Thursday, I will tackle these questions and work to enlighten you. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will be Frank About Health to advocate for all of us.
Calling all pet lovers.
Pet Avengers, assemble!
On the Professionals and Animal Lovers show, we believe the bond between animal lovers is incredibly strong. It mirrors that bond between pets and their owners. Through this program, we come together to learn, educate, and advocate.
Join us live every Wednesday at 2 p.m. at talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to this final segment of this episode of Frank About Health. I basically found myself with a list of questions to ask you, and during the entire 45 minutes, you've answered most of them. So you are definitely what your bio has said. You're an excellent speaker. You're definitely entrepreneurial minded. I'm inspired by you personally, and so I definitely look forward to speaking, beyond the program. But I also wanted to continue our discussion that we ended the last segment with about that chart of all the way up to wisdom, because this is about the future of the next 30 years as we are living, and at the same time as your book suggests. So aside from getting the wisdom and being able to adapt and change and help teach our youngsters about how to do the same, what else would you say is evolving from this revolution, this industrial revolution?
Yeah, I think one, Frank, is that what I'm trying to point there to is that we're gonna move first to truly universal education. We're gonna find a way to educate everybody in the world far better than we have in the past, and we're going to be able to teach people how to make better decisions, which is wisdom. First, as I was explaining, you gain perspective, and then you use that expanded perspective to make better decisions. That's what it is. And that can be taught. Now, going back to, people will say to me, well, how do you do those kind of, huge global things? How can you suddenly make a quality education worldwide? And I will introduce a term to you. Imagine global bespoke, meaning custom tailored to me, lifelong learning. Imagine that. Now, how is something like that possible? Or how do you, and through that, then how do you teach wisdom? We have these incredible technologies now, the cloud, first of all, which we now have 5 billion people of about 7.5 who have access to the cloud. And we will soon, within the next decade, everyone in the world will have that. Today, roughly about the same number, maybe 4 something, will have smartphones. And by then, they will all have smartphones or something better. And I'll mention the something better in a minute. And we've got artificial intelligence, which from an entrepreneur or business person standpoint, it is a marvel what it can do, because it allows you to develop very complex systems in a fraction of the time for a fraction of the cost. I was an IT guy. I came up, I started programming when I was 16 years old, came all the way up to be chief information officer before I became a chief operating officer and a president and then a CEO. And I've stayed very close to technology. And this is a true revolution in what we can do, because we not only develop systems faster, but the systems learn. And once the systems learn, they don't have to be constantly maintained and altered like they did in the past. They literally adapt. So one other huge technology change that's going to create the opportunity to do what's called democratize, meaning making things that are available today to a few, to many, and ultimately to everyone. Those are democratizing innovations. And that's not a new term. I mean, it's not a new thing. It goes back to the invention of writing was a democratizing innovation. The printing press democratized books, which in turn democratized the demand for literacy, which in turn democratized the demand for public education. So that's how these things create momentum. So the cloud, artificial education, and I want to mention one other technology. And then, of course, if we were talking medical innovations, that's a whole nother show. So,
which I think we're going to end up having.
Right. But on technology, one of the big changes coming is that since I've been in IT, so I've been in IT over 50 years, and more than that, almost 65 years. And one thing has not changed with all the incredible innovations and speed and capacity that we've got, is that we still, my brain, your brain, everybody's brain is one of the most powerful computers. It is an incredibly powerful computer. Science still can't figure out quite how it works. And on the other side, the cloud, think of the cloud as almost unlimited computing power. Almost unlimited computing power. Now, what separates us today? How fast I can type and how fast I can read a screen. That's an archaic connection. Imagine if we didn't have to type. Why should typing, control how fast I can communicate with the computer and my brain with it? And how fast I can read. And then, of course, it keeps an enormous number of people in the world from being able to access computing because they don't know how to type, they don't know how to, and they don't know how, perhaps they don't read well, So we changed that. That's a transformational change in humanity, not just in technology. That's coming. It's coming by either voice, so like a super Siri, that we just tell it what we want. And so in my own language, if I'm an Aborigine in the Brazilian rainforest, I can tell it what I want and I'll get it. All right. But also it's very likely, or the predictions are, we will find a way to safely connect our brains to the cloud, directly to the cloud. So it doesn't mean none of us are going to allow a chip put in our head. That's not going to happen. Now they're doing that for people who have musculoskeletal diseases and so forth to help them overcome it. They're actually doing that right now. There's 14 companies at my last count working directly on implanting chips to help people overcome disease. But this is different. This is saying, I like to imagine it as the smartphone. So I can turn it off, I can mute it, I can control what I do with it, but now it's behind my ear. It's just a piece behind my ear. And maybe all I have to do is speak and tell it what I want, or even at some point, I just think it. And so that's where we're headed. And when that happens, that changes the world like nothing before, because we can think and operate at a speed we could never imagine, ever.
I presume that's what your two books coming out are going to cover. I mean, you said one was in 2023 and another one in 2024.
Yeah, no, it's not really. This first book is all about how we develop the skills and, quite frankly, the wisdom to adapt to this enormous technological change that's coming. The second book says how it goes into detail on how do you actually pursue your potential? How do you discover it? How do you find it? And then the third book says, why do high potential people blow up? The second book's called The Potentialist 2, the pursuit of potential, the pursuit of wisdom. I'm sorry, because wisdom is the highest human achievement. That is someone at their peak. And the third book is, how do high potential people blow it up? How do they lose their chance at their potential? Because it's oddly enough, it's pretty predictable. And that one is called Predator and Prey.
Now, Ben, I hate to cut you short because we are definitely going to have to do a second show because you missed the opportunity to speak with my co-host, Phyllis Quinlan, who has, I'm sure, a lot of questions related to it. But ladies and gentlemen, again, go to Amazon.com and buy this book right now when you get the chance. It is a must read and a guide, especially if you're trying to go through a lot of reorganization after what we've just been through the last 2.5 years. Ben, I'm going to call you back as soon as possible so we can actually schedule the next show. And ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned for our Friday slate of shows, which are always Friday and Philanthropy in Focus, right here on talkradio.nyc. Thank you for being here at this episode of Frank About Health. I'll be seeing you again next week. That all being said, thank you, Ben, for being on the show. And I'm still reading the book even this weekend because I've been a student as well as someone who spoke with you about this excellent book. So thank you again for being here.
You bet. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Sam, for everything. And overall, stay tuned and next week.